Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the show, the podcast. The episode, or the series, rather, or the podcast. I'm out of words today. It was a long day at work. The podcast, where every single week on Tuesday on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, we talk about MLB The Show. And today we're talking about MLB The Show while also talking about technology. The wide world of technology. We do something a little different on today's episode, something I've never really dived too deep into before. I've tried to do my research both to educate myself and to provide some answers to the community. Today we're going to talk about connectivity, online connectivity, as it pertains to MLB The Show, and maybe how we can hopefully pray for improvement in the future. As I said, sorry, I'm writing something down here that I forgot. I made notes for this episode. That's when you know it's real. Your boy made notes. As I said, I also educated myself. This is going to be such a boilerplate explanation, kind of like a connectivity for dummies. I am positive there are people in the comments or people who are listening who know more about this and understand this better than I do. If I make a misstep with my words, it's not intentional. Please correct me nicely. But if you have anything to add to this conversation, because I do think this is going to be a very interesting conversation, not just me, myself, but in the comments, please add it below. Let's educate each other. So let's just get into this episode. And for that, where's the button I'm looking for? We're actually going to go to the good old desktop. Bingo bango. All right. So before we get into what's actually on my screen, I want to point out a couple things that I've experienced. So, how does lag, which is the product of piss-poor connectivity, how does lag impact MLB The Show? I have made a list of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 things. I'm just going to read them off. This is not an exhaustive list. I am positive there are more. So please also put the ones I did not list in the comments. Ways that lag impacts the game, or ways that lag, exists. So the first one I wrote down is crossplay. If you play crossplay, you have lag. I don't know if that's based on actual... not all the time, by the way, but you're more likely to. Same with playing old gen versus current gen. Those kind of get tied together a little bit. I don't know how much that's based on, signal strength versus just different devices communicating. Maybe that's a different scenario altogether, but that is one of the ones I wrote down. And then here, I'm just going to list these off. This is what I've experienced in laggy games. I should have said this up front. Not everybody on planet Earth, and this is a problem in itself, has crispy internet available to them. And that is unfortunate. So, I don't know what the solutions to any of what we're about to talk about are, because you have to be able to make the game accessible to everybody, right? But there should be some sort of level middle ground where we can establish, hey, there's got to be a connectivity baseline for you to play this game against other human beings. Okay, let's get that out of the way, because I do think there's an internet problem in the world. Regardless, here are the issues I've experienced when the game is a laggy mess, which unfortunately happens quite a bit. Pinpoint tracing is a problem. Pinpoint timing is a problem. Catcher reactions, as in how quickly they pop and how easily you're able to navigate that little bar that goes up and down. That ties into throwing on defense. Now that we have a dynamic throwing meter, timing's important. Lag ruins that. Cutoffs and or relay plays. Perfect cutoffs and perfect relays become much more difficult when it's a laggy, disgusting mess. Defensive animations. I think people overlook this, but a lot of bad defensive animations that you get are not just because of the defensive rating of your player. It's because of potential bad lag or bad connection. It just causes all sorts of broken problems within the game. I wrote down here late swings, but what I should have written down was just timing windows. Timing windows cease to exist when you have a laggy, messy game, and it's almost impossible to hit for the person not used to the disgusting connection. Pitches kind of skip, or warp is another word for it. Generally speaking, when you're the pitcher, in my experience, you see more skipping, and when you're the hitter, You see more warp. Oh, no, maybe I had that backwards. Whatever. Skipping, warping, both of those things exist. When you are actively running the bases and rounding the bases, your ability to have your runners react to what you're telling them to do decreases drastically. There are problems with stealing bases. You get bad jumps. And you can also have that little thing where the base runner or the stealer starts to run, stops in the middle of the base path, or does the moonwalk in the middle of the base path, and then he gets his ass thrown out. You also get bad jumps in the outfield. I've noticed that's a lag thing, just because of the way the game is reacting as well as the player. And then this is such a general thing, and maybe this is anecdotal, but I don't think it's wrong. There is increased RNG and fluke when the connection is bad. I don't know why. There are other things that I could think of off the top of my head where, like, yes, there are instances where sometimes you're actually playing at a different stadium than your opponent. I think those are rare. There are issues with crossplay too, where your outfielders start at different depths. I don't know if that has anything to do with connectivity. That's just the thing with different, again, software or hardware communicating. But my point here is, if you are the player, whether you're a good player or not, you could be a bad player. It doesn't matter. If you are the player who is not used to playing on that type of connection, like your opponent most likely is, if he or she has a bad connection, you are at a severe disadvantage, because all of those quirks to the game are not going to be as glaring to the person used to them. And this entire conversation is not necessarily about inherent advantages and disadvantages. It's just to have a conversation about what lag is. It clearly exists quite a bit in online games just across the board, but I feel like in sports games, and specifically MLB The Show, the lag creates actual functional problems in how the game is played. Just my experience. So let's educate ourselves right now. And again, at any point, if anybody would like to add anything, drop a timestamp to what you're referencing, please, because that's going to be helpful to people, and then add your comment. So the first thing I did, which isn't always the perfect source of truth, but this was the easiest thing for me to do. I went to good old Google on Google Chrome, and I just simply typed in, why do online games lag? So the AI overview, because your boy's not clicking on all these links, I found the AI overview was quite intelligent from time to time. Here are some reasons. Internet connection. That's your obvious one right up front. A slow or unstable internet connection can cause a delay in data transmission between your device and the game server. This delay can cause lag, which can make your gaming experience sluggish and interrupted. That's how I'd describe it. Sluggish and interrupted. Bandwidth. Online activities like gaming require more bandwidth, or the maximum amount of data. Sorry, my phone just vibrated. I forgot to turn it to do not disturb. There we go. Online activities like gaming require more bandwidth, or the maximum amount of data that can be transmitted over internet connection. If you don't have enough bandwidth, you might experience lagging and buffering. Buffering is not a problem we have in this game. Lagging is, though. Geographical location. That, of course, makes sense. The farther you are from your opponent, the worse it's going to be. That can affect your latency. Your router location. That's a very to-you issue, where you are in your home as it pertains to the location of your router. And that's kind of where I'll stop here, because I don't think background applications are really going to affect console gaming as much. So where do we go from here? I went to Reddit, and then the show.com community forum, which is basically a controlled Reddit. And I just looked up some stuff about MLB The Show servers. Granted, this chain here that we're just going to kind of skim is from December 2020. It's old. I understand that. But, it still is relevant. So recently, Sparky here, that's a good name, had a conversation with another user, and it got me thinking, Sparky thinking, about the difference between a game that has dedicated servers compared to one that is peer-to-peer. MLB The Show is played on peer-to-peer. It is not, to my knowledge, on dedicated servers. Sparky assumes that means that even though both players connect to SDS's servers, the person that is the home team hosts the game. Generally speaking, if you experience a very laggy game, there is a good chance you are the road team and playing against somebody who has piss-poor internet. It could also work where you're the home team and playing someone with really bad internet as well, but I have, in my experience, found it more often that it happens on the road. But that might be strictly anecdotal. You might have a totally opposite experience. That's just what I've dealt with. This guy goes on to explain what his internet setup is and how could it possibly happen. And again, we're in the kind of the days of PS4 here, or at least like the PS4, PS5 overlap. So this guy's talking a little bit about PS4. I don't think that's necessarily relevant to what we're talking about, though. And then here comes Lanky Ryan. Lanky Ryan comes in. He's got a fun name as well. He's got nothing in terms of actual information, but he's going to add his thoughts. That's how I operate, too. Matchmaking for these games has been infamously, atrocious since the start of Diamond Dynasty. It stands to reason that the home team hosts head-to-head games because there wouldn't be lag on the pitcher selection lineup screens pre-game otherwise. That's important to note as well. You want to know if you're the home team in an online game? Before you choose your pitcher, scroll up and down. If it's laggy or feels stuttery, you're on the road. There you go. Like you and everyone else, we don't know for sure if the community's assumption on how matchmaking takes place and how their P2P connection facilitates H2H gameplay. Lots of shortened things there. We'd surely all be better off if games were server hosted. If your internet is there's a good point here too. If your internet was the issue, you'd see drops across all your devices, not just the game you're playing. If your console was an issue, you'd see drops across all your games. Test it yourself. For example, if I play a head-to-head game against somebody that has really piss-poor connection, I know it is most likely not my fault unless Comcast or Xfinity decides to bend me over, which they do from time to time. I always have blazing fast internet speeds on all my other devices. I work from home. My stuff always works. And if this game is laggy, I can flip over to another game and it's fine. That's called proof. There was one other one here. It has nothing to do with download, upload speeds, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so here's the next place I want to go with this. What is peer-to-peer, you ask? Throwing out all these things. I've heard of servers. What is peer-to-peer? Now, this is from Computer World in 2002. So, it is an old definition. I'm sure it has since had little things change. But the gist of it is here. Okay? It's the gist. We're only trying to accomplish the gist here. A peer-to-peer network is one in which two or more PCs, or in this case, consoles or gaming systems, share files and access to devices without requiring a separate server computer or server software. So I think we get routed through an SDS server, but then it ultimately is a peer-to-peer connection. That's my understanding of it. P2P network, a peer-to-peer network, can be an ad hoc connection, a couple of computers, in this case, again, consoles, connected via a USB to transfer files. That's not what we're talking about. Or a P2P network can be a permanent infrastructure that links a half dozen... That's all right. Forget we're reading any of this now. Now we're getting into computer speak. Let's do something really quickly. We're going to do this. We're going to do this. Peer-to-peer network in gaming. Okay, look at us adjusting on the fly. We're going to go back to full screen. Okay, we're going to go back to the AI overview again. In peer-to-peer gaming, one player acts as the server and the other players connect to them to play a game. Here's some things to know about P2P gaming. Players share their public IP addresses and communicate directly with each other. In peer-to-peer, players are responsible for steering the game, whereas in client-server architecture, a central machine controls the game. That would be a dedicated server, based on my understanding. When it works best. P2P gaming works best when players are close to each other, so connection quality is better when other players are nearby. That's why, for me, I live in Baltimore. In this general region, if I match up with somebody, most of the time, the connection is really good. Really, unless someone plays in bad weather. That was just capable. Weather makes lag horrible as well. But if I match up with somebody who I believe to be on a hunch based off their name or their icon or their team composition in, let's say, the Dominican Republic or PR or Canada or Japan, if that happens, the connection is always bad because the people aren't nearby. It's not like me poo-pooing those people. We're just not near each other, so it's not going to work great. Pros and cons. Peer-to-peer gaming has some advantages, such as easy setup and the ability to handle up to 10 players, which we don't worry about. We only have to get up to 6 for co-op 3s. It also doesn't fail if a player leaves the game, and it can easily organize itself to minimize delay. However, peer-to-peer gaming can have slower connections if played globally. Some peer-to-peer games include Animal Crossing, Super Smash Bros., Ultimate, GTA Online, and Demon's Souls. Doesn't mention MLB The Show, but MLB The Show is one of them. Another thing that's important to peer-to-peer gaming and just online gaming in general is ping. Ping. What is ping? I should have looked that up. Please hold. We're going to do it live. What is ping in gaming? Here we go. We're doing it live. AT&T Business. They're business people. They're smart. Okay, here we go. A lot of ISPs won't tell you this. So those are service providers. Speed isn't everything. A powerful gaming experience that eliminates lag, jitter, and buffering. Ooh, jitter. In gaming requires more than just a fast internet. Physical distance to the server, connection speed, networking equipment connected to the internet, blah, 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 blah. What is ping? Latency is the time it takes for the system to respond to an action. In internet and networking, this is the time it takes for a data packet, your in-game actions, to send it to the server, and then for your server to process it. Many factors impact ping, totally out of your control. Physical distance from the gaming system to the gaming server. With everything else being equal, a gamer 10 miles from the server will have a better ping rate than someone 100 miles from the server. What is a good ping rate for professional gaming? A ping rate over 150 milliseconds, blah, blah, blah. A ping rate under 50 milliseconds is fantastic and is desirable for professional gamers. So, MLB The Show has that going for them. Because this website, pingserverstatus.whatever, what's it called? Pingserverstatus.com. That was actually a joke, but I was right. You could check MLB The Show server status. Right now, on the U.S. East Coast, the servers are online, and the U.S. East Coast has the best ping of any region at a ping of 48. It's under 50, and that means it's pristine. The U.S. West has a 47. SEA, that can't be Seattle. I don't know what that means. But, yeah, we're kind of cooking in terms of ping. The problem is, and Chev talks about this quite a bit, and he would be the better person to explain this. So if you ever are in his stream, ask him if he is not super busy, what his thoughts are on this. He thinks that when you match up with somebody, you should be able to see their ping. And if their ping is too low, or if their ping, maybe it's like a red, yellow, green type of scale. So red is bad, yellow is so, green is great. And if it's in the red, you should be able to decline the game and not match up with that person, so you don't subject yourself to bad connection and bad latency. This is a lot of technical stuff that I am not going to pretend I understand. But what I do know is, what I do believe, I think peer-to-peer is cheaper than having dedicated servers. Let's look. Is P2P cheaper than dedicated servers in gaming? P2P networks can be more cost-effective as they do not require investment in dedicated server hardware and maintenance. There's your answer. That's the answer right flippin' there. That's why SDS does not have dedicated servers. So I missed one tab here. This one. What is a dedicated server? Why are they better? This is from some website that looks very techy and professional. Unlike shared servers where multiple applications or websites might run on the same machine, a dedicated gaming server is exclusively allocated for the game, ensuring that its resources, CPU, RAM, and bandwidth, aren't shared with other unrelated tasks. As these servers are optimized for gaming, they often offer, that's hard to say back and forth, they often offer better latency, reduced lag, and a more stable connection, resulting in a smoother gaming experience. Let's see, I'm skimming really quickly. To set up a dedicated gaming server, one would typically need a reliable server, either physical or virtual, a stable internet connection with good bandwidth, and the necessary software related to the specific game they intend to host. So that is, I think, for individuals to do versus larger corporations. So the community at large has long complained about connection problems. I think the connection problems tend to inflate how negatively we talk about gameplay. MLB The Show does not have perfect gameplay. I don't think anybody is out here defending that. The gameplay has its moments. It's not always perfect. But when you introduce lag and delayed responses and latency and things like that into the equation, it throws everything out of sync. It becomes a nightmare. And so I think one of the best things they could do is pony up and spend some money on dedicated servers and eliminate or drastically eliminate much of these concerns. We ask SDS to do a lot. Specifically this year, excuse me. We want them to spend money on Legends. We want them to do this. With the way any business is set up nowadays, people aren't just throwing money around. So I don't know if we're going to get both Legends and servers. I don't know if we'll get servers and Legends. I don't know if we'll get a mix of... I don't think you can get a mix of both. I think you either have servers or you don't. I just want to make people aware that it's a cost to do this. That's not me defending or supporting P2P and what it's currently constructed as. There's a cost. I believe Amazon Web Services, which... This is not going to be 100% accurate, but I know it's close enough. Amazon makes most of its money off, cloud server hosting, doesn't it? Mostly for websites, but can you do it for gaming servers as well? Amazon makes most of its money. You can look at the numbers from that, not even from their bullshit sales and Kindle and whatever else nonsense they do. They make it from that. It's expensive because they make a frick ton of money from it. The point of this conversation, I guess, like I said, was to educate a little bit, which I hope I did. I approached this as somebody who knows nothing about it, and I still, I understand a little more. Still don't understand a ton. But a pretty, just newcomer to the space of this tech. I just wanted to understand it, or better understand it. But I wanted to have the discussion about lag, and the realization that lag is why a lot of this game sometimes doesn't function the way it should. At least in online play. In online play is what I'm talking about. If you play offline, probably doesn't impact you at all. And I guess I end by saying I am sincerely curious of your thoughts. Did I completely butcher this explanation? I really hope not. What other instances of lag impacting the game did I miss? Because I'm sure I did. I just made a quick list of the glaring things to me. But I do think this game would get a drastic improvement from dedicated servers. It's something the competitive community and the uber competitive players have for sure wanted because it makes their experience better. You can see the lag playing online tournaments that MLB The Show hosts sometimes, and it's just it doesn't look great. And even though it's something it's screaming loud by the competitive community, it is something that would benefit the entire player base immensely. It's not like it would provide more advantage to the better players or less advantage to the not good players. It would just overall be a better gaming experience for the player base. I don't know the type of lead time you need to set this up. I don't know if it changes the code. I'm sure it does in some way. I'm sure it is an undertaking and a lift. Maybe it's something that takes a couple years. Maybe it's something they're already talking about. I have no clue if that's true. But maybe it is that type of conversation where you have to start having it so early to get it prepped for 3 titles from now. I don't know. It's just shooting shots. But this is where I'm going to stop. So let's go back to my face. Here we go. There we are. This is my game, by the way. Nothing's happening in the game. I purchased Paul O'Neill today. Just because he's down to 65K. Regardless, that's neither here nor there. That's going to do it for this episode of the show, the podcast. Let's have a conversation. Sure interested to hear what you guys are thinking. Look out on Thursday for a How to Pitch with Todd Helton. I've since learned that he was an ace at Tennessee. hadn't a clue. Hopefully we don't get absolutely bent over a barrel like we did with Harold Baines, because that was a sad, sad video. But thank you guys for making it to the end. I'm open to learning more, so teach me in the comments. I love you guys. See you next time.